So that's it. If you're clicking on this video first, what the hell are you doing? You're in the wrong spot. There's a whole playlist of videos up to this point where you can see our top 25 picks for the best Final Fantasy songs of all time.
They want spoilers first.
I guess, but
Yes.
that's the wrong way to go about it. If you somehow come here by mistake, you started at the wrong end of the list. Go to the other side and then listen through and come back here in the future. But now it's our time to talk about overall impressions, songs that you thought should have made the top 25 but didn't, things maybe you wanted to advocate for but it didn't quite have enough oomph to make the cut. This is your chance. This is, and I also have a hot take to use at some point.
Yeah, I'm split because I do want to hear your hot take. That's not why I'm split. I'm split because the list is wrong in the sense that 15 is not a number one song. So that we aired. But I like that it is a good song that is not probably what somebody would assume. I don't think it would be in most people's top 3 to 5 guesses that this was our number one song. So it's like we got a good song, but it's unique. It's like there was a reason we made the list, sort of. Like, there's a part of me is if we got together and we said One Winged Angel was the best song, I'm kind of like, well, maybe we didn't need to do this. Maybe we could have just Googled the list or something. So I like that our panel brings a unique perspective, and that manifests in what our number one was. And overall, I think the list was really solid.
Yeah, I think we ended up having a good balance by the end. Good selection across most of the games. Sorry, 12.
One less pot shot for the road.
I had to do it. But yeah, I would say our list was pretty balanced. I'm gonna have to pull up my list to see if I have any honorable mentions. But overall, I feel good about it. I think it was balanced. I think the number one makes sense. It's a good track. We all voted on it, so that helps.
Yeah,
I do have a couple of honorable mentions that were on my list.
we're not there yet. We have honorable mention section.
Yes.
I want to hear your opinion.
Wandering Flames from Final Fantasy X is a nice lo-fi kind of mood. I could listen to that I think I listened to it the entire 10-hour YouTube video while I was just at work, just chilling. And Final Fantasy IX Dark Messenger, which is the battle with Kuja at the end.
Almost made my list. One of the last cuts.
I had a lot of songs from 9 on my list originally that ended up not quite making the cut, but there were several. I'm trying to look at. Do I have any honorable mentions? Somebody else go.
Well, yeah, I don't.
Buy me time.
We're in it now.
I guess we're in the honorable mentions section. I don't have any honorable mentions. I really put the songs that I cared about, which is nice. It always is like hurts me a little bit to have something like just miss the list. I also thought the list reflected, again, like the panel, and because it was pretty 15 heavy. I think more than most people's list would be. We had a good dose of 14. There was no 12. Which is like kind of nice. Like we left our own imprint on the list. Like a lot of these songs, there was like one comment like, "Can you please do 100-hour version of this? It's annoying to hit repeat after every 10 hours." I like that comment a lot. And that's how I felt about like a lot of our, especially like top 10. I loved it.
If you guys don't end up getting merch shirts that say "at the buzzer" or excuse me, not at the buzzer. Good lord,
Hey,
Objection Network and say "sorry FF12."
We are missing out. That would be fun to win at the next Distant Worlds concert. So they are going to play 12 music there, so it's not really going to work, but we will. People will know. Yeah, I mean, I can look at you. I can give you some overarching stats to think about a little bit. So, Shaun, you're right. You have the least beef with the list because the highest vote of yours that didn't make it in was 14th.
Hell yeah.
Everybody
That's
else
because
had
my taste is the best.
Yes. Everybody else had a song or songs that were higher than that did not make the cut for the top 25. I have 3 songs from Final Fantasy VI higher than that didn't make the list because I like songs that aren't the mainstream ones. So that's let's see.
Because you're a hipster.
So Devil's Lab is another one of those songs that's always stuck with me. That's like important to me. Kids Run Through the City is the best town theme of any Final Fantasy game.
I feel like I voted for that one. Maybe not.
I was going to bring that up. Like, there's actually an entire class of song that is kind of missed out on in this list. And it is songs like that represent a place that is somewhat pure that you don't like. It's like that meme where they say, "I've only known this for like 2 hours or something, and if anything were to happen to it, I'd kill everyone here and myself." And for me, like so it's Kids Run Through the Town. For me, it's Besaid Island. That actually did make my list for that reason.
I could see.
And it's a weird pick. It's a weird pick, I understand, but to me, it just brings back memories of that one time that I was on a beach in Mexico. The waves were like gently crashing in, and it just felt it feels nice.
Here's the breakdown by
So I-
game, by the way. 4 from 6, 4 from 7, 4 from 10, 4 from 15. So there's 16 to 25 right there. 3 from 14, 2 from 9, and then 1 from 5, 8, 11, and technically 1 Prelude kind of belongs to every game, and yet none of them, so it doesn't really count anywhere. But
I'm surprised you guys didn't vote for the opening, the like Final Fantasy like theme.
it was on my list. 24th, but it was on my list, so it got 2 points. I don't think anybody. No, I think someone else voted
I voted
for it.
for it.
Yeah. That was yep. There it is. There's my 2 points, and you're 11. So not enough to really make it. I thought about putting it higher. There just wasn't room, but it did make the cut. And there were several songs that I liked quite a bit that didn't because I had 110 in my first cut, and they're not all going to make the top 25. That's just math.
I will shout out the other Final Fantasy 1 song that I feel kind of stands out is Matoyo's Cave. Just this one place, just rockin' theme, you know.
I like the guitar version of it best from I think the Black Mages did it, right?
I believe
Yes.
so. And it's interesting
that's my
because
favorite.
that song's kind of endured, and Matoya has kind of endured in ways I don't think they would have expected back then. You know, all the other generic like fighter type classes have not really shown up again. I guess the Warrior of Light has had some play afterwards, but for the most part, like Matoya is the most important character in that game somehow. How did that happen? Did anybody think about putting the battle theme from Final Fantasy X? I had it on my list. I was surprised it stayed on there.
I only had
Oh,
one.
I don't think
well,
I did.
2 battle themes.
I think when I first went through and was just listing a bunch of songs, it was there at one point, but it very quickly fell off.
I think we talked about this. You got to be a hell of a banger because we're going to hear you 18 million times throughout the course of the game.
I think the only 13th song I voted for was the battle theme.
Blinded by Light, yeah.
I would have, but I
Yeah.
took it out because I wanted like some 13 representation. I was like, you know what? I don't love this song. Like it's good and it's the best that 13 has. I still don't love it.
I think the
I think
Promise is
it's-
better, but
Yeah.
I like Blinded by Light.
I think it's the best battle theme, even more so than 10. But those are both solid picks. That the fact that they're not on the list is a little bit of a slight. But no, they're both really good. Listen to them.
There were some songs I voted for that I knew never had a chance, but I had to vote with my heart. I don't try and game the system. We did kind of game the system the first time we ever did one of these lists and like tweak some votes to like rearrange certain things. Then we didn't really like cheat, but we broke ties in awkward ways and we did some stuff back then. Now I'm like, I'm just going to vote for what I have and we'll let it play out as it is. It worked really well on the best games list, I felt like. I didn't change
I can't
anything
care
for
enough
that.
to game the system. If I wanted to game the system, I would have been all of my Final Fantasy 15 songs. Number 1, number 2, number 3.
I would have thrown out your list. I'm dead serious. I will say I was surprised that the game with the most songs for me was 7, and that was not what I would have guessed coming in. In fact, I think the one I'm kind of sad didn't end up making the cut is Cosmo Canyon. Nobody else voted for it. Very underrated in my opinion.
I thought will this make you feel better? I thought about it.
It does.
But really, I was like, oh, you
It
know what?
does.
That is a good, and I especially liked it when they played it in the concerts. Like that's a really, like, I always get excited when they play that theme there.
Yeah,
But
it is a
you
good
know, it
one.
wasn't enough. There's too much 15 to get to.
Theme of, or as we like to call it, theme of dad statue.
Yes.
Yes.
Anything else
It's
that you
on
thought?
my it's on my Final Fantasy VII list of things that I could have chosen from, but the way I did it is I slowly went my way down each game, and unfortunately I never got that far down on Final Fantasy VII for it to make it. But it is a very solid song.
I like the flamenco song from 9.
Yeah.
It didn't make my cut, but
That's a surprise.
it's
really.
36th. Didn't make my cut either. It was on my second cut. But
Yeah, I had it at one point. I had that and Trino and some other tracks from 9. Just none of them quite.
it's good and like musically very good. But like,
Mhm.
unless I'm salsa dancing, I don't like want to listen to it. Really.
Right.
I did put it on my list, so it is.
It was
there,
on mine.
So.
No.
Yeah.
you had it in the same spot.
Oh,
Similar.
Whoa.
Mm.
collusion.
That's
What was
that's
the hot
weird,
take?
actually.
I want to get to the hot take already.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Do you want
That's
me
a
to?
good idea.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah,
time,
of
I
course.
think.
What if not
Okay.
now? When?
I said I was going to be the lightning rod of hates that people wouldn't feel like we were singling anybody out. I think Final Fantasy 15 has a phenomenal soundtrack with a ton of standouts. It's not a Final Fantasy soundtrack.
It is.
What?
It's just a different composer. What do you want
Yeah,
to do?
sorry.
No.
Final Fantasy soundtracks changed when Uematsu left. So that doesn't just apply to 15. That applies to 14. That applies to 12 especially, because 12 is a fucking disaster. And what's funny to me, honestly, is that the one thing from 11 that made our list is by Nobuo Uematsu, even though he didn't do almost all the tracks for that game.
That's funny. I will actually,
Because you know what? Yoko Shimomura is too connected to Kingdom Hearts now. So those songs sound like Kingdom Hearts.
but in a weird,
they don't
do.
sound like Final
They
Fantasy.
actually do, and I agree with you. To me, that's a little bit of like a connective thread. Like I know we bemoan that Kingdom Hearts has moved away from Final Fantasy,
Yeah.
but like that was like my connection is like, well, Final Fantasy, and then it goes in the spin-off, and now it's back in a main game. And it's also really, really good. I totally agree with you on 13. When I listen to 13, I'm like, this is like some
It
other
doesn't-
series.
Like, there's a pretty version of The Promise that it has vocals that plays in a couple of the... That's not really an overworld in that game because it's a fucking straight-ass line. But the point is, like, there's a really pretty version of it. It doesn't sound like Final Fantasy at all to me. And maybe this is just me being old, get off my lawn shit. But it's like, there's a certain expectation that I grew to expect with this series. And again, he's chipped in on 11. He chipped in on 14. Like, it's not like Nobuo has been completely gone, but... It's not the same, and unfortunately, the reason 15 stands out in particular is because I already have a great sense of what Yoko Shimomura does. And she's done plenty of other stuff besides Kingdom Hearts, including Street Fighter, whose themes continue to be used until 6, where they threw them all out the window. But the point is, like, she's had other work, but she's Kingdom Hearts now. In the same way that, like, Nobuo Uematsu did Blue Dragon. I don't give a fuck about Blue Dragon. He's Final Fantasy. Like, it's too ingrained to be anything else now because they were such an important part of what made those games great that now if they branch out, I'm like, no, I don't. This isn't for me.
I weirdly agree with you
So-
looking ahead to 16, even though the guy who did
14
is now doing
Soken.
16.
Yep.
But I still feel like, okay, without Nobu and without Yoko, I'm like, is it going to sound like Final Fantasy to me? And I don't know. We'll see. I mean, it should. And you guys like 14. But like that's a thought that has gone through my head. So that's interesting that you say that. See, it's
So-
not that hot of a take.
It's kind of hot.
It's like a
I
lukewarm.
guess the question I might have is, do you anticipate in the future that might change into this is when Final Fantasy changed this instead of this isn't Final Fantasy?
Well, I think it's in part because of what happened to the series as like battles go as well. So I haven't really liked the gameplay since 10 either. So there's a problem. And I think those two things are not linked, but they both happen at the same time. And look, the three of us play Shaun also played 14. Hell, Michaela played 14 for a bit. Like, I like 14 quite a bit. It's an MMO. It's not a Final Fantasy game. It has Final Fantasy trappings. Obviously, they're everywhere. There's references and chocobos and all this stuff. But it's not what I wanted from the series. I like the turn-based combat, and everything we do goes further from that, and 16 is just... And at this point, I'm like, good in a way. I would rather them go full-on action and just embrace that new direction than the weird hybrid stuff we were doing in, like, 12.
I liked 12. And it's like a precursor to 14. There's a lot of like similarities between those two. I really didn't like 13. It's very divisive, but some people swear by 13. They're like, you're conducting the flow of battle rather than like, I'm like, yeah, well, I don't want to do that. I want to battle. I want to fight.
I didn't hate that battle system. I just hated every single character in the game.
Yeah, well, that too.
No,
And 15, I liked it for what it was. I don't know why we can't go back to turn-based anymore. Like when we've talked about this to death, but when other series are doing it and doing it so well and still selling like a bajillion copies. So it's like, that's not even really the concern. Like, why can't Final Fantasy, who pioneered so much of turn-based games, who was like associated with turn-based for so long, why they feel like they can't go back to it? I think their leadership sucks is part of it. I'm going to be honest.
I think they feel like they can't go back to it for Final Fantasy, but they have gone back to it in other series, of course.
Right!
The Four Heroes of Light
doesn't make
and
any sense!
Octopath Pather.
Doug, I don't get it.
It is really
Octopath
weird.
Traveler is a great, and it's innovative, fast-paced, new, mechanically turn-based, and it's awesome.
Even 10-2, which is faster than 10, which was already a pretty fast turn-based battle system. The battle system isn't the problem with 10-2.
Yeah.
And the dress spheres, other than being a little silly on the surface, the system mechanically is not the problem with 10-2. There's still a lot to like if you're a turn-based fan. And if you like the direction Final Fantasy's gone, that's cool. I don't really begrudge you for it, but it's really not for me. So like that kind of answers your original point. And the other point is, if Yoko Shimomura was going to be taking the mantle long term, I bet I would get more used to it. But she's not. It seems like 15's one and done. So now it's just like this quick little jaunt in from a composer who does not do this series.
Yeah, I wonder what they're going to do with that going forward. Like, is this Soken? Is that his name? Soken?
Yeah.
Is he going to be like, who knows?
We don't know.
Like,
I mean, at this point, the way the development cycles work, that answer is going to be like 2029 by
yeah,
the time we get a Final Fantasy 17.
Yeah, exactly.
He might be dead. He had cancer, Shaun.
Oh, I didn't know that. I just figured it would take another 30 years for the game.
It's okay.
to
It's in
come out.
remission. It's fine.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my beef, and it's nothing to do with Shimomura, who's great. She's phenomenal. She's one of the best composers of all time, and it's not like the music in that game is bad. It's really, really good. There's several standout tracks, but it doesn't read like Final Fantasy to me whatsoever.
That's the thing I like about 14. Which there's a lot I don't really like about 14, but there are some things I like a lot, and one of them is the soundtrack and how there are a lot of new tracks, and they clearly take cues from the series, and then there's just a lot of the songs from the series, so it's like a love letter to the entire musical history of the series, so it feels very Final Fantasy still, and that's something where they've really excelled at.
Yeah, big shout out to the 14s. What they did with Eternal Wind, Final Fantasy 3, is
It's become it's one of the most important songs in the series now.
Yeah.
Which is hard to believe if you thought about that in 1990 or whatever that was when 3 came out. So that was my hot take.
It's crazy that we're also talking and debating music that is like super old now on a series that's super old and like still continuing. I think that's like really great and unique, and like we can't even talk about it in like its lifespan yet because it's not over yet.
Nope.
And hopefully it won't be over anytime soon. And that's really cool.
And I was kind of sad to see that nothing from 4 made it. What was the closest? I think it was Red Wings. Yeah, Red Wings was 29th. So it was nearly there, but not quite. Because we talked about it earlier, but like the series really took a jump around Final Fantasy IV
in a lot of ways. Yeah.
to be this more modern instrumentation and a lot more interesting songs, tonally, melodically. So like I'm not really upset we didn't have anything from 1 through 3 on our list, although again you could argue Prelude and the main theme did get a couple votes, but it is just it goes to show you that it was a little too old back then. So the stuff that was ahead of its time in the mid 90s still endures, and hell, 6 tied for the most songs of any game. But it goes to show you that back then, I mean, you could crank out a 20-second loop, and all the games, like Legend of Zelda has a dungeon loop that I really like, but it's 20 seconds, right? Like back then the expectations were different. You could get by with just the minimal, and now it's like, look how far we've come to where, even though I just pseudo criticize 15, look how complex some of those tracks are musically compared to the basic beat boops of 1984.
Yep. Also,
Right.
shout out, a hot take shout out to no less.
Okay.
Can you do both of those? Yes.
Yes.
Is just like what a testament to the series that I had a hard time narrowing this down to 25, right? And if we were to do a Pokemon, which you guys did, I would have a hell of a time even getting to 25. Even thinking of enough songs that I care about to hit 20. That's a hot take part. With Final Fantasy, it's like I can't even limit it to. That is so cool to have. Like what a great problem to have. There's too much good shit in only like a handful of games. You know, like that's super impressive.
We were playing 14 one night, or maybe a different game, but I was on a call with the Fialas, and I was down to like 29, and I was struggling. Because like I usually have a hard time with maybe the last cut or two, but at the end of the day, what's at the bottom of our list doesn't really matter. There's not a lot of points down there. It's like 22nd, 25th, whatever, right? It's more about like the principle of it. Like I gave it a vote. But I couldn't figure out what the hell to do to get 4 songs out of there. I'm looking at all of them. I'm like, I can't cut that.
Yeah.
I can't cut that. So to your point, like it speaks to how many quality songs. Again, I had 110 in my first cut. And obviously I know going into that's just like what could possibly make it from each game. But still, I've never had that many on a first cut before. There's so much good stuff.
I feel like that's like good music, right? It's like you didn't have as much trouble cutting games because like I don't feel any like ownership or like super attachment. Music, it's like emotional investment. And it makes it really hard.
When you said 29, is that you had it ranked through 29, or you just had the 29 songs kind of loosely organized?
So I don't really rank them until I usually go. It's a complicated thing. It shows you how I care too much about this, but it's like the first cut is just anything that matters from each game. The second cut is okay, what given that I only have 25 spots, what clearly is not going to be good enough to make it? That usually gets me in the range of like 50. For the best games, we were doing 50 for me and Shaun and Dave's list, so it was more like 60 on that one. And then it's just kind of process of elimination. Like, okay, again, I can only fit 25. So this one that's like in the 40s, that's not going to make it. So I usually put them in 3 tiers then. So it's like, here's the must includes, here's the almost certainly going to make it, and here's the borderline stuff. And the borderline stuff was really strong in this one. We did the Trails music one. That was the first one we did. And there were some songs I liked that I cut. I didn't spend a lot of time on them. Because at that level, it was like, all right, like this is a good song, but it doesn't need to make my list. It's gone. It's fine. That was not the case here.
And the thing is,
Did
like,
we already go over which ones they were?
I don't know if I can find that original version, but I can look real quick while you talk.
If you're watching this list, thank you. Also, you're probably here because you like Final Fantasy and you see the value. If there's somebody here, here's my hope. Somebody stumbled across this list. They thought Doug was super handsome, so they're like, yeah, I'll check this out. And what they take away is like, oh, like music, like sort of matters. Like they're not just like trappings as a backdrop of like the gameplay. It's meaningful and it matters a lot. And like, so many games where like Maisie just heard the song playing and that made her interested in trying the game. And then she played it and loved it. It's like all that stuff matters, and to have composers and game designers who take it seriously and get to bring us such excellent music. I think it's really great. So hopefully somebody has taken something away aside from Doug's handsomeness.
But if that's all you take away,
if that's all, you know what? Then it is what it. I mean, look
my
at
line's
him.
open.
It is what it is.
I can tell you, Red Wings was probably last cut. I can tell you, Volsta Fantastica was probably the next to last cut. There was a song from 14, I think Triumph, the Stormblood boss theme, that was very close. And there was one other one I don't remember. That's what got us to 29. But looking at those and trying to figure out what was not going to make the list. Because again, it doesn't even really matter ultimately. First of all of this doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things if we get hit by a meteor tomorrow. But just in general, like, again, there's only a handful of points at the bottom of the list. So whether one got 25th or 27th doesn't really matter. But I take it seriously. So those were excruciating cuts. It's like, God damn, I love every single song that's left, and I have to cut 4 of them.
Man, I'm trying to think
Okay,
of what
guys.
does matter if we get hit by a meteor tomorrow. I think like very little in anything we've ever done in the history of mankind.
I think the live stream matters. The live stream's going to matter a lot.
we gotta find the holy materia. That's what
Yeah, I guess I suppose
It's going
that's
to be
true.
really fucking important, actually.
Michaela, final thoughts. Great, you're on the spot. Doug,
Do it.
tap for me.
This was a good list. I'm glad we did it. It was fun,
Okay.
and I like all of our picks.
Great. Doug,
Yes.
it's now your turn for the final hot take, or regular take, actually. Thoughts?
I'm sorry. I had to get you going there. No. I don't have much more to add than I have already talked about. These songs are incredible. Of course, I love Sutaki Dene more than everybody else here, but no, I feel like every one of these songs is incredible. This is a great list, and I feel privileged to have been part of it.
That's great. See, what happens is I do like the 8 Mile approach where I talk 1,000,000 miles a minute. I say every point that could be made, and then I'm like, Doug, why don't you have something to say? And he's like, I can't say anything new, so I guess I'll just. With that said, Nick, go ahead.
As Doug was getting onto towards the end there, I am very happy to have been involved in this process. The list, as it turned out, I think yes, I would say it is very solid. It was surprising in a lot of ways. I think, like I feel like I would not have pegged Genova as the top for this group. That's the most obvious one for me. It certainly made me the whole process has certainly made me think about all of this music in a very different way, and I'm glad to have everybody's perspectives on that.
As Chris has pointed out, if the Dreamweaver had not come out, I'm certain that Genova wouldn't have been in the top 5.
Yeah, that's actually probably true because I wouldn't have voted for it.
I don't think I would have
in that
voted for it either.
Wouldn't change my vote.
Nick was surprised because he underestimated how much I love 15. And that's
And I will
That
say,
was a
I mean,
surprise.
I mentioned, it was tied for the most songs. I actually don't really mind how much 15 got in there. It was a little bit dicier when you went out to like the top 40, because then another like 15 songs were in the mix there, and that would have been a
Yeah.
little
Director's
silly.
cut. That's what we got.
Yeah.
A little silly. But we also only guarantee this list out to 25, because the scoring system kind of starts to break down when you get into like 70th place, and it's like, this song had 3 points and this song had 2. You're like, well, who fucking cares? Like, they might as well not have had any at that point, because they're nowhere near the top 25. So it's really only meant to reflect that part. You can talk about the ones that just miss, and we did, but in general, I thought it turned out pretty good.
Yeah,
So-
so tune in next time. We have a bunch more we're going to do on this. This series is taking off. I don't have the numbers or metrics to back that up. I just a feeling that I get. So we're going to do...
This
I'm nothing-
indie
no
series
evidence.
is-
If there's one thing I've learned from modern day politics, you don't need facts. You just go off your feel.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to do a Zelda list for sure. And then we're going to do some others. We're talking about a bunch of other ones. I would love to do a Phoenix Wright list. I don't know the legs on that one because it really limits, I think, the panel. And can we get 25 Phoenix Wright songs? I'd have to think about it. Top heavy, it would be very good. But I don't know.
Yeah, I can get to 25.
I
I
would
don't
be
know
up
if I'm
for it.
going to feel strongly about anything outside of about 15 or
Right.
so.
Right. So we'll think about it, but there's going to be more like this. It was very fun. Guest panelists, which I guess I am technically one too, but I'm also part of the main show. So fuck you. Thank you for joining, Michaela, Nick, and Doug. It was really fun, and I'm excited to do more of these.
So that's the end. If you made it to this point, thank you. If you made it to this point and you're not subscribed, push the button, you piece of shit. I'm just kidding. We love you. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say it that way. But in general, I usually only plug at the very end. Or I'm not one of those YouTubers who's going to be at the very end of every video going like, oh, smash that like button and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. But I feel like we've earned it after 5 weeks of doing this top 25. So if you haven't subscribed, please do so. Comment below with your favorite songs from the series. We respond to those comments all the time. So I want to hear your takes as well. And we'll see you next time.
See y'all.
Can you imagine people that don't subscribe? Oh, you didn't end it yet. People who don't subscribe.
No, go ahead. Talk your shit, King.
And they're like, man, I really wish you would have plugged it. Like, throughout the whole thing, started with the plug.
They're hovering
like,
over the
midway
button.
through, yeah.
I want to push it, but I need to be told.
I like it when they spam subscribe to me. Well,
Chris
this
has
is
this
not your
graphic that
podcast,
goes over
man.
the front of the screen.
Big subscribe button.
Yeah.
Sheep.